Hello and welcome to the Cameo Show. I'm your host, Cameo. With me is my husband and co-host, Greg Braun.
How we doing?
I don't know why I always say it like that. Greg Braun.
Greg Braun.
Instead of just saying Greg or
Greg.
Greg Braun. Greg. Either way, he's here. And he usually starts us with a dad joke.
Whoopsie. I do not have one.
Okay. Fail. Well, I'll just make one up based on today's theme about the dentist. Why did the tooth refer to himself as a prince?
Why?
Because he was wearing a crown.
Ooh, good.
That's pretty smart,
That's pretty
right?
good. You just made that up, huh?
I did.
Nice.
I have a lot of crowns in my mouth.
There you go.
So when I think of teeth, I think of crowns. And we saw this podcast the other day. You sent me a DM of the clip where they were talking about how they think that going to the dentist is like the biggest scam in America. Bold statement.
Yeah.
But the guy, I don't even know the podcast, but the guy was sharing that he had this experience where he went to the dentist before they moved and they were like, we need to do a deep clean and you have a few cavities that we need to like take care of.
Yeah.
And then they moved and he had to find a new dentist because they moved. And they did like the whole cleaning and intake and they were like, everything else looks normal. And he was like, well, my other dentist told me I had 3 cavities. What's up with that? And they were like, well, we don't see anything.
Yeah.
So you sent that to me because you have a very similar story and experience.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, that
Unfortunately,
sucks.
I do.
Let me first start by saying that my stepmom is a dental hygienist. And when we lived in Marysville, Ohio, we had an amazing dental team, including her and our dentist, whom I loved. We all did. The kids went there when they were teensy. Not all dentists are this way.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, based on his commentary and based on your stories, like,
Yeah.
there must be a bunch of them that do operate this way, and sucks.
Well, this is just one of those buyer beware, I mean, you just have to be aware that the world we live in is swimming with sharks, So my story starts over 20 years ago. It was like 2001 or 2002. I mean, it was a long time ago.
You're dating yourself.
Yeah. It was in Dublin, Ohio, and I didn't have a dentist in the area, and I got a reference from somebody, and I go to them for a cleaning, which I thought would just be an in and out kind of a thing. I hadn't had one for a couple years, and I just always brush my teeth morning and night, never without fail. I mean, that's just something I always did. And I had my cleaning and they were like, you've got 6 cavities. And I was like, whoa, I haven't had any cavities my whole adult life. I think I had one when I was a kid so none. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah. And they like showed me like these little tiny, and I was like, I'm going to like let that go.
Wait, they wanted to like drill into them right there?
I was presented with a payment plan while I'm like laying there getting my teeth cleaned. The doctor came in and he was like showing me his like, this is what I could do for you for like staining your teeth,
I was like, what are you doing with your lip?
Yeah,
exactly.
like
if you're not watching
top,
the video, you can go to YouTube and see what Greg was doing because it was kind of weird and I was confused, but
I was severely overwhelmed. He was trying to sell me on getting my teeth whitened.
Okay, now tell me what about the lip?
And he like showed me his like bottom teeth and top teeth, like they were drastically different. Like he was completely bleached white on the top and the bottoms were like yellow and normal,
First reason to get the hell out of there.
What the hell? I felt like
Who
I
does
was
that?
But then the whole cavities, and there was like a couple $1,000 payment plan they were wanting me to sign and do, and we can do a couple. And I was like, it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I don't forget how much. So I left and just that was that. But I forget how much longer after that I went to our dentist and got a second opinion. And they were like, nah, you're good.
Well, it wouldn't have probably been too much longer because if that was pre-me and then we started dating in 2003, you probably started going to see Susan
a year later, maybe.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, it was something like that. And And I just remember, because I'm in my head thinking, well, shoot, I got a bunch of cavities now.
Yeah.
I've got to take care of these cavities, and I'm like, wow, that's so weird. And then seeing Susan and her team, and they're like, yeah, there's no. And for the next 10 years throughout our progress in Marysville, never had any cavities, never had any filled, so miraculously, right? And then we moved to Florida.
Consider yourself lucky, because that is not my story.
Yeah. But then we moved to Florida, and again, should have learned our lesson from, previous experience, but just randomly went to a dentist. I think they could get us in, whatever. Same thing. You've got all these cavities.
And you had just had like your last appointment in Marysville, Ohio, right before we moved. Like not that.
Yeah.
Like it would have
like
been
a final
within
cleaning.
6 months or something. So we move here and you go and they're like, you have all these cavities at your intake appointment.
Yep.
And you're like, that can't be right. I just had no cavities a few months ago.
And again, with the payment plans, and I'm just like, this is crazy. I looked up our dentist that we have now. Thank God we live in a day and age where you have Google reviews.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you can go read about businesses before you do business with them. And I mean, it's one thing to ask, a good referral from your neighbor or coworkers. That's a good way. But also when you can go see what thousands of people are saying. So we luckily found a great dentist locally and went to them. And same thing, you're good to go. No cavities. So just be aware, because we've heard other stories from people that have went in and done all the fillings. And it's like, you were going to drill into perfectly healthy teeth 20 years ago and put fill cavities that weren't there. And it sucks, because you've got to trust people. You've got to trust mechanics.
That's what I was thinking. Like, you have to go to
your financial
the doctor.
people, and like, you got to trust your real estate agent. You got to trust your dentist. And it sucks that you have to be this on guard, but just because someone is a doctor, or just because someone is a teacher, or whatever the title is, they're also human, and they can also be driven by greed, or they could also be, have different motives. Well, so you just have to be aware.
I just know from my experience in working as a banker at a big corporate bank, some of you listening might know which one. I'm not going to say it out loud and throw anyone under the bus. They all work the same. That like people would come in with a question about their account, or with a, fraud on their credit card situation, and they would be referred over to us as a banker, where the business plan was to take care of the issue, but then also cross-sell them, find some other way to get more hooks in, get more business, transfer their savings account, introduce them to the mortgage lender, to the financial advisor. Like it's always a situation. And that's business. So I get that and I respect that. But when you have somebody coming in because they're frantic about fraudulent charges on their credit card, and they want you to sell them the newest credit card, instead of just doing the right thing, close it down and open a brand new one, like that's kind of shady. I got to be honest. Like, even if they agree to it, just even presenting it to them in that moment feels wrong in certain situations. So it's not just the dentist. It's not just the doctor. Unfortunately, you just can't always trust people who are in a position that you think you should be able to trust them.
Yeah.
They're just doing their job. They're just trying to move the needle in their own business. They're driven by other things, and that sucks.
And I think one of the best life skills that I've ever picked up on my journey has been the ability to say no. Mm-hmm. And I feel like no should be kind of like the default setting until, there's enough evidence for a yes in these situations, because a lot of this is like highly trained, highly specific. And, for example, if you're going into the bank because your debit card's broke, and then you're being offered all these other credit products, you just know, like, this is not what I'm here for. But if they're doing their job and pull up your account and see that you're not taking advantage of maybe this credit card over this credit card because you're not getting reward points for if you're using your card versus like there's benefit to it.
Sure.
There's benefit. Hey,
There's not benefit to drilling into 6
well, that's what
perfectly
I'm
good
saying.
teeth.
Yeah, there's
Right.
benefit that when you worked at the bank and you did a great job, it was you pull up their account and see like, okay, there's opportunity here where they can say their mortgage is at 7 and rates are at 5. Well, let me get you over to
You're
the
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, while you're here, and if not, that's fine. But like, not like, automatically just giving you a bunch of stuff that you didn't ask for.
Yeah.
That you're going to then profit the bank for. That's what we're talking about. That would be the equivalent of like drilling into your teeth with no,
Yeah.
for no cavities. Like
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. But the podcast episode that we saw of another couple talking about it, I never really felt like it was something that anyone would really give a shit about, or like that's just some past stuff from my life that like who cares, that okay.
Something that happened.
But clearly that's happened to other people, so just figured it would be something that would be beneficial to everyone out there listening, that to just be aware of these things.
So I think I told you this. I have an unfortunate thing in the same line here about the dentist that I have to share.
Okay.
I love our dentist. I trust our dentist. I have a ton of dental work.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I have never not had a cavity ever in my entire life. And I would just like to say, for the record, I am very diligent about brushing my teeth and flossing a lot. Okay. Let the record show.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we researched this dentist, and we've been going there forever, since we moved to Florida, there's a lot of trust and respect there.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, on my last visit, which they were very close. Okay, so a couple months ago, let me back up. A couple months ago, I remember when I broke my tooth.
Yeah.
Okay, so I bit into a Chomp's meat stick and I broke my tooth. And I had like...
It wasn't the Chomp's fault.
My tooth was like mostly cavity filling anyway. And so I went in and kind of an emergency visit, had to like get a crown. Remember I said I have a lot of crowns? Well, I have one down here as of recent. And at that visit, they had to do like some x-rays and like a scan to put the crown in my head,
Mm-hmm.
right? In my mouth, not in my head. I guess it's the same thing. Well, then I went back for my regular cleaning not that long ago. And the dentist that did the crown is our like normal guy.
Mm-hmm.
And the dentist that was there has been added to the roster
Mm-hmm.
since we started going. I like him as well. He's always done a great job. He's seen the kids, I think, more often than I've seen him personally.
Mm-hmm.
But they did new x-rays, which I was confused by because I thought I had just had some done. But they did new x-rays, which is fine. I don't care. And he came in and did some checks after she cleaned my teeth. And he was like talking about some of the cavity spots that the other dentist had referenced, but said, I wouldn't mess with them. And he mentioned the ones that showed up on the x-rays and said that he would fill one of them like as soon as possible. Just doing his job, like
Mm-hmm.
straight shooter, like I wouldn't mess with that one. Like the other ones probably can get away with, but I would take care of that one because I can kind of see it from like with my instrument, just looking at it, not just see it on the x-ray. And I innocently, and probably because I've had this situation with your dentist story, innocently was like, well, what has changed? It's only been a couple of months. Like, am I more of like, did I miss something? Like, am I doing something wrong? I just had that crown put in and everything was fine. And he said, wait, and now you're telling me to get it filled. And I could sense that he, because people like being questioned.
Yeah.
I could sense
Especially
that,
a doctor.
Yeah, I could definitely sense that he felt that way.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean it that way. But he was like, well, I mean, you don't have to. You can decide whatever you want. I'm just telling you that this is what I see and this is what I would do. And I don't know what changed between then and now. And I'm sure you didn't do anything different. It's just, maybe it progressed a little faster than anticipated. And I say that because like you said, like just no is the default and just, learning how to say no. And I did. I said no that day. Like I didn't want to do it that day. I wasn't prepared for that. And I had Ben with me, our son. And I haven't called to schedule it because I'm terrible at doing that. I procrastinate. But to your point, like standing up for yourself and being your own advocate is difficult. And then especially when it feels, even when it wasn't intended to, it feels combative. And then it creates this like weird dynamic and tension. And I feel bad about that he might have felt like I was questioning him when I was just trying to understand to be my own best advocate.
Yeah.
And his intentions were not to take advantage of a situation, but because of a previous experience with you, I'm sensitive to that. So like, I guess I share that because it was kind of like a disappointing moment of like, I don't want this weird dynamic. I hope he isn't offended. And I also don't want to get my tooth filled. So I have to like find this balance of respecting their professional opinion and trusting it. And then also like making my own choice. And that sometimes feels like a really thick gray area, especially when it's something, unfortunately, but fortunately, I have a lot of experience in the dental area with all of the stuff I've had to have done. But especially when it's something that you don't feel confident about or that you don't know much about, like if you go to a mechanic or to a doctor or a bank or whatever, and they're sharing something with you that you should do, and it just makes you feel confused because you're like, I don't know what's the best thing to do here. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line is there's no harm in doing more research and getting a second opinion, even if it's something that's urgent, but especially when it's not something that's urgent. Because
maybe especially when it is urgent, because that's when you can make, if you speed up, you make dumb mistakes.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Because you're not thinking clearly and you're like, oh my God, I got 6 cavities. What do you mean? Let's go, Like,
I was thinking like something urgent, like health emergency, but you're right. Like if you have a health emergency and you're in the ER, you've got to be able to just trust that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you're probably right. If someone's making something urgent that maybe shouldn't be urgent or isn't,
Yeah, I mean, that's sales. I mean, we're in sales. We understand sales. So when you're being sold, you are very sensitive to it because you're like, you're creating urgency here, like that you want to create urgency.
Well, like in the banker scenario, for example, it was like, well, you've got them right in front of you. Like otherwise they're here for an issue, but you have the opportunity to like help them in other ways, also known as cross-sell them something too that they need, but sure, they're not there for that. Like there's urgency because they're in your seat right now.
But again, there's nothing wrong with that because you're uncovering opportunity. If you leave people up to their own, when I get around to it, they will, like you said, procrastinate. You haven't even called to schedule your appointment. Do you know what I mean?
And I don't intend to for a while.
You're never going to be like, I should go do this thing.
Well, but it will become urgent when it starts to hurt is kind of what I think.
If you
like, I'll decide when it's urgent if it.
Yeah, that's that. But I'm saying like the banking example, like hurt would be losing money, but you wouldn't know that you're losing out on $20 a month in rewards because you're not using this credit card versus that.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'm just saying like the right thing to do is, while they're there, talk to them about it, present it to them in a professional way, tell them why they should or shouldn't, Okay, the other side of this is being honest with people. How many people call and say, should I refinance? I've got this going on, should I refinance?
Well, a lot. And I would say that you definitely, especially after all these years, veer toward the being completely brutally honest with people about like, this doesn't do me any good and this doesn't help me in any way, but you should get an equity line and call this guy and he'll help you with that. Or this doesn't do me any good, but like this isn't really beneficial for your situation because long term it's going to cost you more than you're going to realize. And like,
here's a pro tip. If you pay down your mortgage, you can recast it. You don't have to refinance it.
Yeah. Like,
that kind of stuff.
That's right. And that cuts you completely out of the picture as a salesperson, but it's doing the right thing. It's integrity. It's character.
Yeah.
And like, as a banker, sure, I'm finding holes or opportunities, or I was, and I wasn't doing anything that was harmful to anyone, but maybe it was not necessary, or maybe then wasn't the right time just because they were in my seat and it was urgent as a salesperson. That comes down again to like character and integrity. And I just, especially when you're talking about a doctor or a dentist, it's important to find one with the right character and integrity because
character is everything.
Yeah. And get a second opinion and know that you can trust that what they're telling you is true, especially when they're trying to drill holes in your teeth, you know? And everybody, attorneys, mechanic, like you just name hairstylist, like no offense, Faith, our daughter is a hairstylist. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody could totally they could lack character and integrity and sell you things, products,
and you can't teach
operations.
Character and integrity. Those aren't things that you can, learn. I mean, like that's like who you are.
Well, I think you can learn them though. I mean, that's a completely different conversation, but like I think you can learn them by example or who you choose to like follow as a leader. You can learn them. Maybe you weren't dealt the best cards with regard to that, or maybe that's not who you are wired to be initially, but you can rewire that. Like,
yeah.
But I just think that it's important to like really do your research and diligence when it comes to these things. And like you said, get good at saying no, determine what's really urgent and important in that situation. I mean, don't get mad at me, but I think you do it like almost to a fault. Like you're very guarded. Like when we buy a new vehicle, you're very guarded. Because you just expect that they are going to lack character and integrity and try to sell you on every extended warranty and this, that, and the other. And they do, but maybe they're just trying to find opportunities to help you where they might not have otherwise the opportunity, or you might not realize you're not taking advantage of. So it's like,
yeah, it's not really a new thing either. I mean, this is as old as time, this whole idea here, but just having a good network of people in your life that you can trust, that you can lean on when you do have something come up. Like they always say, like a good plumber and a good, good dentist.
In case you're in a shitty situation.
Yeah. Ooh.
I'm full of jokes today.
Dad joke central.
Woo.
But yeah, I mean, just be aware. Be aware.
It's actually a really good moral of the story, is that you are the one that has to advocate for your best interest, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it might feel like in my case with the dentist most recently, like it's a little bit of a tense or awkward situation. Like trust your gut, trust the vibe, really discern what might be urgent, important, and do your diligence when it comes to decision making, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you with your teeth, but are you still cavity free?
I still don't have any cavities.
You better knock on wood. I don't do anything different. I don't eat more candy. I don't drink less or more soda. It is like we basically do the exact same thing. You agree with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, you
sometimes I fall asleep and don't brush my teeth, but not very often. Not very often, but I'll just own that. But like, it's just not fair.
Yeah. Well, there's yin and yang to not fair, I'm not real athletic, so that's not fair,
That's not true. I mean, I guess genetics, right? Genetics.
Yeah.
Well,
it's genetics.
I don't know who to blame for my genetic teeth, but somebody is to blame for them. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Cameo Show. You can find all prior episodes of The Cameo Show on all streaming platforms and YouTube. Please subscribe, share with a friend if you enjoyed this, if it helped you, if it was useful information. We all show up because something resonates. So if it resonated with you, it probably will with somebody that you know and like. So give us a woot woot, a subscribe, a share. We appreciate that very much. We appreciate that you're here, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening.